This is not breaking news. This is not a scandal. This is not about one person. This is about a system that only looks stable because it has been quietly borrowing time. And now the invoice is due. Somewhere inside the industrial economy, something essential was requested. Not a luxury, not a vanity project. Something that keeps projects moving, payrolls steady, and prices from spiking without warning. And the reply was not a negotiation, not a delay, not a workaround. It was one word. The kind of word that doesn't just stop a shipment. It stops assumptions. If you've ever wondered how an economy can look fine right up until the moment it isn't, stay with me. Subscribe if you want the next pieces of this before it hits your life sideways, because once you see what that word exposed, you can't unsee the mechanism behind it. And it's already accelerating. What truly controls the system right now is not elections, not speeches, not even money, it's throughput. It's the ability to move physical things, ore into smelters, parts into factories, machines onto job sites, on time, in sequence, without interruption. That sounds mundane. That's why it's dangerous. Because when throughput breaks, power doesn't disappear. It concentrates. It migrates to whoever can say yes and whoever can afford to say no. And in the world you're living in, no is no longer just a word. It is leverage. It is a weaponized delay. It is a contract that can't be overridden by outrage. You've been told the modern economy is digital, weightless, flexible. But the real system is still metal, fuel, shipping lanes, and lead times you cannot hack. So when a critical request collides with a hard refusal, it doesn't create a headline. It reveals a hierarchy. And once you see the hierarchy, you start noticing the quiet shifts that made it possible. For years, the risk didn't look like a crisis. It looked like efficiency. It looked like lean inventories, just-in-time delivery, outsourcing the bulky, expensive parts of industry to partners who could make them cheaper, faster, cleaner. Before, you could assume slack existed. If one supplier slowed down, another could step in. If a shipment missed a window, you could reroute. You could absorb it. Now the system runs like a tightrope. Specialized machines are booked out. Components are pre-allocated. Schedules are chained together so tightly that one missing link doesn't cause a delay. It causes a cascade. And here's the normalization. Dependency stopped being described as dependency. It got rebranded as integration, as global competitiveness, as modern supply chains. But slow change is the kind that kills you, because you don't feel the danger while it's happening. You feel it only when you suddenly need something now and discover the calendar doesn't care. So when someone tries to leapfrog the line, months, not years, it forces the question the system has been avoiding. Who gets priority when there is no extra capacity left? Here's the concrete shock. A demand went out for heavy machinery, equipment so scarce, so specialized, it can cost millions per unit, take a year or two to build, and rely on hundreds of upstream parts that have their own bottlenecks. And the demand wasn't when you can. It was accelerate, fast-track delivery, override existing priorities, move the timeline up, months, not years. Those machines, according to the material you provided, are produced primarily outside the United States, locked into long-term supply contracts, and central to the biggest projects: construction, extraction, transport. Then came the reply. No memo, no soothing statement, no counteroffer. One word. And that word did something markets understand instantly. It signaled that the normal rules, contracts, goodwill, predictable trade, might not protect you anymore. If you're still watching, hit subscribe, because this is where people assume the story ends. It doesn't. Because the refusal wasn't just about equipment, it was about leverage. And the leverage is sitting on top of a different, quieter shortage that is already warping the entire economy. Here's the mechanism. And it's colder than it looks. In your material, the machinery standoff is happening in the shadow of an aluminum squeeze. Prices up sharply, inventories collapsing, premiums rising, projects slipping behind schedule. That matters because the system doesn't break one item at a time. It breaks at the choke points. A tariff goes up, the headline says protection, but the math says margin, and margin decides where metal flows. If exporters can't ship profitably into a tariff wall, they don't martyr themselves. They redirect to markets that pay. The supply doesn't vanish. It simply moves away from you. Then inventories fall. Not slowly, suddenly. And when inventories fall, Every buyer becomes desperate at the same time. That desperation shows up as higher premiums, panic pricing, and companies hoarding inputs. Now add heavy machinery, long lead times, imported specialization, pre-sold capacity. So when a political demand tries to override the queue, the supplier isn't hearing urgent. They're hearing, oh, give up your leverage for free. And if they understand the trap you're in, scarcity you helped create, they can turn one word into a negotiating position, which means the damage doesn't land where you think it lands. It lands where people can't pass it on. And that's next. Now it speeds up. Prices jump. Inventories thin. Schedules snap tight. And then one late delivery becomes a shutdown. A single missing shipment can idle a plant. Hundreds of workers, not because demand collapsed, because access did. Projects slip, penalties stack, bids written months ago turn into losses overnight. Contractors start choosing between layoffs and bankruptcy. And the market doesn't wait politely for the paperwork to catch up. Insurance recalculates risk. Financing gets tighter. Executives start whispering pause instead of expand. In your material, you can see the shape of it. The construction sector hammered by unpredictability. Manufacturers facing scheduling chaos. Whole industries exposed because aluminum and machinery are not optional inputs. They are the spine. And the terrifying part is how rational it all is. No villain twirling a mustache, just actors responding to incentives. Exporters chasing profit. Buyers chasing survival. Politicians chasing leverage they can't actually enforce. That's how a system fails, not with a single collapse, but with 1,000 temporary disruptions that suddenly synchronize. And once they synchronize, the next question is not who's right, it's who breaks first, because the break is coming. Now let's put you inside it, because you don't experience this as trade policy. You experience it as time disappearing. You sign a contract, fixed price, tight margin, you bid based on last quarter's costs, then the input spikes, aluminum jumps, equipment doesn't arrive, your schedule becomes a liability. If you're a worker, it's not a debate. It's a text message. Don't come in tomorrow. It's a shift cut. It's overtime gone. It's a project that was federally funded turning into indefinitely delayed. If you're a small contractor, you don't have a treasury department. You can't absorb a sudden 40% move in materials. You either eat the loss or you breach the deal. Either way, you lose. And if you're just trying to buy a car, renovate a home, or pay rent in a building whose construction costs just blew out, this shows up as a higher price that nobody can explain without sounding like they're making excuses. If you've ever felt like the economy is becoming a machine that chews up normal planning, subscribe. Because the next layer is where this stops being domestic pain. It becomes international reordering. Here's the global ripple, and it's the part that doesn't reverse easily. When a major economy signals it may try to override contracts and reorder supply by political demand, every supplier learns the same lesson. Diversify, disentangle, de-risk. In your material, you can feel that shift in the reactions. Europe emphasizing contract integrity, Asian suppliers watching precedent, partners recalculating what reliable means. And the moment one close partner realizes it holds leverage, real leverage, measured in tonnage and delivery slots, it stops acting like a junior player. It starts shopping for alternatives, not because it wants drama, because drama is now embedded in the relationship. If your trading partner can change the rules midstream, you don't argue. You build options. You open new routes. You create new dependencies somewhere else. That's why a single refusal matters more than the demand that preceded it. It tells the world the old assumption, North America as a stable, integrated industrial bloc, can no longer be taken for granted. And once that assumption cracks, the consequences travel. Mexico watches, Europe watches, Asia watches, and they don't just watch, they adjust, which means the standoff you think is temporary becomes something else entirely, a rehearsal for fragmentation. And fragmentation has a cost. You pay it in every product, every project, every month that uncertainty becomes the business model. Now, there are only 3 ways this goes from here. So here's the acceleration. 3 paths, all of them expensive, none of them clean. 1, adjustment. The system adapts. Tariffs soften, exemptions appear, deals get stitched together quietly. Suppliers resume discretionary flows. Lead times ease, not because the world got nicer, but because incentives got realigned. The pain becomes manageable, not gone. managed. 2, erosion. Nothing fully breaks, but nothing stabilizes. Premiums stay high, inventories stay thin, projects keep slipping, businesses start planning around disruption as normal. Capital spending slows because certainty is gone. This is the slow failure, the kind that feels like a rough patch until you look back and realize capacity never returned. 3, rupture. The standoff hardens. The review becomes a showdown. Legal tools get invoked, retaliation lands, contracts turn into court fights, trade frameworks fracture, supply chains reorganize around new alliances. And once companies spend billions to reroute dependency, they don't snap back just because politicians shake hands. I am not going to tell you which one happens. Not yet, because the most dangerous part is still unresolved. The system is behaving like scarcity is power. And once scarcity becomes power, every player is incentivized to create more of it. And that means the final question isn't who wins. It's what kind of economy do you wake up in when no becomes the primary tool of diplomacy? That's where we end this. Open, unfinished, and urgent.